Hey there, welcome to the Ofrenda. My name is Nicholas Gonzalez. Thanks for coming over. Each episode, we'll get the chance to meet someone new who may not be able to introduce themselves anymore. We'll talk with those who knew them, as well as discuss all of the different topics that arise whenever you pause and take the time to remember people. Today, we have a very special guest. We have one of my friends who actually helped me start up this podcast and kind of get things rolling. He has created his own podcast and is currently in the works of starting another one. And we've worked together on several shows and kind of seen the many ups and downs of theater and touring. This is Adrian. Hey, Adrian.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. How are things?
They're good. They're good. I'm glad to see you've settled in. Sounds great. I love it. I think I think you've caught yourself quite the concept of a show. So I'm excited to see what happens and see where it goes. And actually, when we wrap up, there's a couple of things I can turn you on to see if maybe you want to pursue them as far as new ways to interact with shows. There's some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline as far as how listeners can interact with the creators and pull in platforms like Patreon and PayPal, all of these groups that take a cut of the value that gets traded between the listener and the creator and the app builders.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really cool stuff happening, and I think you've arrived just in time to check this train out, because full speed ahead.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the blessing, and I appreciate the shout out for sure. And yeah, it's been interesting just starting out, because I've been listening to podcasts for several years now, and I always thought it was kind of interesting to try and just start one. But yeah, with the way that, things have been turning out, especially with last year, figured, why not give it a shot? Why not see how things go?
Have you considered if you would try and keep it up if you go back out on the road?
I have, and I mean, it's not like I have too much equipment. It's all travels fairly well, and the concept itself doesn't need too much research on my end, and it would just be figuring out how to contact people who want to come on. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting enough topic that I think this is something that would benefit a lot of people later on. And, with, especially last year, with so many deaths that's been happening in the world, it may seem like some people may not be able to talk about things right away, but maybe perhaps in a couple of years or so, as well as just bring up the subject of death or, grieving and all of that. And so I think this is definitely something that will, I guess, kind of continue on its own. There's not really a set timeline for when people die. So
For sure. And not to mention how many fascinating and crazy stagehands there are out there, or just, people that you encounter on the day to day living on the road.
Exactly. Yeah. I think especially traveling more so once, we're allowed to and all of that, being able to actually meet face to face with some of the people would be interesting, because all of this I've been doing online, of course. But yeah, it would be interesting to be able to travel and be able to meet someone and say, hey, do you want to, jump on and talk about some pretty personal stuff for a while? Or, why not?
Do you want to come on my podcast?
Yeah. But yeah, how are your podcasts going?
Good. I'm really excited about the new one. It's going to be a review show, which I guess it sounds kind of lame on paper, but I'm doing it with two other friends that have their own separate shows, and we all kind of congregate in this community. And the stream that we're featured on, there's at least 30 shows, and I think I think it would be beneficial for everybody to put something out there that kind of replays the material so more people can hear it, so they can hear more in-depth opinions about that show and just kind of generate this hype. And we just want to be a hype machine.
You're going to be the ultimate hype man for everything.
Yeah, I have a button for that one, but I'm really resisting because, I'm trying to keep it professional for this one. I'm not going to do it.
Fair enough. Maybe at the end of the show.
Okay. We can do that. I'll wait.
Okay, cool. But yeah, so it's actually been a while since we've really hung out in person. I want to say it's been like 2 years, right? Or
No,
no?
what?
Oh no, wait. Well, see,
You
here's the
remember?
thing. Well, 2 years since like we were touring together.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say, weren't we hanging out in trees for like a month and a half?
we were stuck up in trees, wrapping them in all of the Christmas lights in the world, and all of that stuff that you don't see until the very end of the night, and
Yeah,
having weird
the lights
looks.
turn on.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true.
It was
Uh,
fun. It was an interesting gig. I've done stuff like that in the past before. Goddamn, it's kind of physically taxing because you're
hmm.
always like you always have your arms up around you at some point for a
Yeah.
majority of the day, or you've got your leg wrapped around tree branches. Getting those little berries in I guess it was the oak trees
Oh
in El
yeah.
Paso, the real sticky motherfucker. Excuse me, I almost said the thing. I'm gonna try not to curse too.
Oh, I
Those
don't
sticky,
censor anyone, so you're good.
okay, those sticky bastards, those little
Hmm.
berries, just like glued to your head by the time you came down out of the tree. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about those. Ugh. Yeah, that was a very interesting time to be setting up Christmas and the heat in Texas.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the last show that we did together was the Chicago tour, which wrapped in 2019, I guess.
Yeah, we hung out a little bit when we were in Toronto because you
Oh,
were
that
there
is
with
true.
you were there with Katz and I was there with Anastasia and we had that little bit of overlap. So that was kind of
Right.
fun.
Indubitably.
Awesome. So then, what are you just working on podcasts now? What else are you kind of up to nowadays?
Just working on that, kind of unpacking from years of touring, getting all my music stuff set up as far as like just the CDs and vinyl, working odd jobs. I think this is the fourth or fifth gig that I'm on right now. So just finding work, keeping busy, keeping moving forward,
Hmm.
all that romantic shit.
Yeah, no, that's true. And especially now that it's getting into summer, there's probably going to be a lot more random gigs popping up here and there.
My beard is over twice as long as it has been in the past.
Oh
So I
shit!
look quite burly these days. Yep.
Nice. Is there
I
like
just
a set length that you're trying to reach, or just seeing how long it goes?
A braid would be pretty amazing. Not gonna
Nice.
lie. If I could get it to the point where we could do a braid in the front, I'd be happy.
Perfect. Well, who would you like to introduce us to today?
I thought about it and I couldn't decide, so I'm gonna flip it on you. And do you want to hear about my biological mother that I found out that passed away while I was at home at Thanksgiving in 2020, who passed away during the tour of Cats, or fallen road warrior brethren?
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't decide. I was just like, man, this is
I mean, both are very intriguing for very different reasons. Hmm. I'm actually curious about the Road Warrior one because I'm curious as to why this one stuck with you. Because I mean, in touring, we meet a lot of people and we hear, some of them we connect with more so than others. But I'm curious why this one stuck with you.
my first tour started in 2012. That was with Disney on Ice. I did that for 2 years. I had a stage manager on that show and a company manager who were monumental in making me understand how, at least, giving me some understanding, this particular understanding of how the sort of stagehand work ethic should be. And Failed Entertainment, there's things I liked about it. There's things I didn't like about it. Would I go back and do it all over again? Yes. Would I be happy doing it? Probably not. But I had a stage manager on that show. His name is Buff. And he was a POWD, a prisoner of Walt Disney, which is kind of a recurring meme joke for a lot of the Feld crews, because you're making like I'm not here to shit on everything, be on a soapbox. Some of the pay was pretty dismal. That being said, there was still just like a level of camaraderie that I've never really experienced except for maybe one other show, which we'll come around to in a little bit. But Buff was the stage manager for the show, and it's a little different on the Disney tours or the Feld tours. The stage manager is more in line with what the duties of a head carpenter on a Broadway tour is. So Buff is the one that's advancing the buildings. He's kind of maintaining the flow of the whole load in. He played a pretty big part in packing trucks, but he came up and Feld, and he was a really fascinating guy because he was on the one hand just so chill, and on the other hand it could flip and it's just like fire in his eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
probably the most impactful thing that has ever happened to me on any show, any loadout, because we've worked together several times. That's my favorite part is the loadout. It's like that's the reason why we're all here, is just the loadout.
Yeah, that's true.
Which some would fight me on.
Well, there's everyone's opinion. But yeah, I definitely remember you were very animated. You had that sparkle back in your eye.
So this is probably, I don't know, jump 3, jump 4. I haven't been there for a month. Back in those days, they had what they would call skater crew. And skater crew were skaters that they would bring on to kind of help fill the numbers for the show at the time. And, it was kind of just like super locals almost in a way. And some of the skaters that we had were top notch. I mean, these guys were driving John Deere tractors, packing the trucks and all that sort of stuff. So those dudes, like, I know there's a lot of like weird union animosity, but at the time, having my card for a month, I thought it was pretty cool. And that's who I was learning from, was the guy that played Ken on ice from Barbie's Dream House.
All right.
So that's kind of like sets the tone for maybe my whole experience of touring, is learning from the guy who played Ken in Barbie's Dream House. But regardless, sorry, I'm getting tangenty.
You're all right.
We had this huge S-shaped I-beam track that the ferries would fly in and out on. There was just like a motorized cart. And they used it for the claw in Toy Story 3 and like flying green army men. But these beams were massive. I mean, we're talking some of them are over 12 feet long. And these huge S-shaped, it came in many pieces, at least 10. And there was a loadout. I was just kind of putzing away and just like, man, I got my little ratchet and I got my screw gun and I'm just going to go and unbolt this one, unbolt that one. Buff out of nowhere comes up and just rips the tools out of my hand and bam, 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 bam. He's done with it. And I had maybe got 3 pieces undone. He comes back over and kind of shoves the tools back in my hands. He's like, hey, you better fucking figure it out real fucking fast. And I did. After, there was major unpuckering.
Yeah, I imagine you probably had to take a second to just remember how to breathe and how to be human for a second.
It was, I mean, it's great. That's the sort of trial by fire situation that I thrive in, at least. And Buff was good for that. The last time I had seen him, I was doing some break work, and Disney on Ice actually ended up in the same town for the day. And I was catching up with people in the lobby, and Buff walked by, and like we said our greetings, but he had just done this like super huge travel day. And, like it was kind of a, hey, bye. And he got in the elevator, and then it wasn't exactly a year out, but maybe the 8-month range. I found out that on the way back from a layoff, he was with his fiance, who was a skater. And like, I remember being in fucking Worcester, Massachusetts at the bar where they, first started heavy flirting with each other, and like they won a shit ton of money in scratch offs and the Peel Tab lottery tickets. But yeah, he had a heart attack on the drive back and died on the side of the road with his fiance in the car, which is just brutal. I did reach out to her later, trying to give her some time. I never did hear anything back from her. And she did end up remarrying, and she started a new family. I think they just have the dog. I don't think there's any kids or anything. But I was coming back from. I want to say I was coming back from Annie doing break work, and I had got the call in the middle of the airport, and it was a head carpenter who was my kind of ride or die pal, who also came up with Buff. Like those guys are the same age, and they started at the same time, so they were kind of like just compatriots, through thick and thin. And we're talking the old school days of Feld, when to save money they would, the crew would band together and put like 6 dudes in a room. All sorts of just really hilarious photos of them having like suits of armor made from beer cases. Have you ever done a Disney on Ice show?
I have not, actually, surprisingly. And you would think, living in a bigger city where they like to stop by, but no, not yet.
It's it's definitely interesting. But I will tell you something. I don't know if it's changed. Granted, I left in 2014. Yeah, 2014. But those guys, god damn, do they like to drink. And, just always hearing stories of them running into Cirque du Soleil, some Cirque tour, and like them drinking the crew from Cirque under the table and all this stuff. That's where a lot of the camaraderie came from, is Buff and his Miller Lite. They were hand in hand when he wasn't at the venue. And it's actually something that I've never really seen on another tour. Like, the cast and the crew would always be down at the patio at the pool if it was warm enough or nice enough. Like, there's certain things on those shows that I'm not really witnessed anywhere else. Just like the intense amounts of bonding. I mean, there was plenty of times where everybody would just crack open their doors in a hotel room, and we're not talking like rock and roll level styles of partying, but everybody would just be kind of roving from room to room, just hanging out, shooting the shit. See what else is going on between the merch, which is the FCP crew, between stagehands, between management. Like, it's interesting. I'm not sure why you don't really see that outside of, again, I only did those 2 tours. Probably the closest thing that's come after that is something like 42nd Street, where there was a really tight bond between everybody.
Yeah, there's definitely pockets of that happening in other shows, but yeah, I don't think I've ever really been in like a particular show where everyone was kind of in the same level with each other. But that's interesting.
It was cool, and Buff was a big part of that. He usually was kind of like one of the, what's a good way to describe it? It's like kind of one of the people to congregate around, if that makes any sense. Because he would just be posted up, just hanging out, day drinking all day if we had the day off, which was fairly rare. But yeah, he was a good dude, and we had a company manager on that show as well, who had been with Feld. I don't want to misquote, but I want to say that he had been on during the oh god, what is it called? It was like Disney on Ice before it got the brand, and it's something Adventures on Ice, Magic on Ice, Holidays on Ice, maybe. He had been with Feld for a very long time, and just a super cool, super chatty, super friendly sort of individual. So we had this really, I mean, even the tour manager and the financial guy, like everybody in the management side was very open, very congenial. Yeah. And unfortunately, Phil had started getting sick on the road, and it turned out to be cancer. And I still remember, like, this is the thing that is, I'm sure this happens everywhere for lots of people, but there's been at least 3 for me, specific places where I can point out, like, yep, that's the last time I saw that person was in that spot. Which, it's I guess what I'm getting at is, being on tour, it's just like, I don't know, it's spread out maybe, But yeah, the last time I had seen Phil, he was loaded up onto into a cab out front of the hotel, and we were pulling away to go to the airport. He was going somewhere else, and he didn't come back. He ended up getting sicker and passed away. So that was a bummer. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, there's the hotel in Des Moines. That was the last time I had seen Buff, and probably the last guy who I was the closest with was my buddy Scurti, the lightning dwarf. He was he ended up taking over for front of house electrician on 42nd Street, and I want to say that was his second tour because he had done one of the Christmas shows prior, and he's sort of epitomized nerd culture in a big way. He was a very intelligent, came from a science background, and had a lot of fun hitting up all the arcade bars with me, him, and Kwame, which we would later deem the dictatorship, where Kwame was the dick, Scurti was the tater, and I was the ship that sailed it all in. Because when we were all grooving, when we were all on the same page, I think we really tore up that show, like as far as cutting down our times and getting more efficient. Scurti, like a lot of people, like myself, I've definitely had occasions where I've dipped in too hard, but Scurti did like to deal at times with heavy emotions, with heavy drinking, and there was plenty of times I'd seen him just so browbeaten by stuff that was going on at home and just hammered on the bus. It was just it's. Even though his body wasn't like physically between his legs, just like hunched over, not from being wasted, but just from being so like sad, you could definitely tell like that's what his spirit was doing. And sometimes it would turn around and bite him in the ass. I'm no stranger to waking up late. It's a fairly known thing. I'm not happy about it. I'm not proud about it. I just show up and try and get caught up and do my thing. Occasionally, Scurti would show up and just late and would bark orders at the truck loaders. And it's just like, dude, you can't do that. I love you, but it's it's a little tuck your tails, keep your head down, just move. Mm-hmm. just stay fast enough so where people can't catch you and call you out, I guess.
Yep.
But no, we had a lot of fun, and I was actually looking to see if I had any pictures of the two of us together, but it doesn't look like I do, or if there is, there's very few of them, which is always unfortunate. I got how weird do you want to get?
As weird as you want.
That's what I like to hear. So Scurti and I, after 42nd Street closed, we kept up over the years. It wasn't heavy communication, but we'd check in every couple of months, and he actually called me one night out of the blue, and I was half asleep, and looking back, I wish I had stayed up longer for it, but he was actually had a run-in with someone I knew from my Feld days, and they had made the connection of me, and they called up, we're freaking out, was super excited, and I said hi. I think I'd been doing a load in or something the previous day, was just super out of it. And I wish I'd stayed on the call longer, because that's just too fun of a situation of worlds colliding, which happens a lot being a stagehand.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it's one thing to kind of realize it, but no, I get it. Like getting the chance to actually talk with two different people who knew you at different times and kind of see what they remember of you, and just chatting.
So he had just started a new show. I forget the name of it. I should remember. I think it was Come From Away, maybe. And I think our last conversation was about the punk scene in Yakima, Washington. And it's just how everybody's just sitting there, like staring at the stage, got their phone in their hand. And Scurti and I had been to a couple of really cool shows. We had actually sold our souls together on stage for a Voltaire concert in Los Angeles.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. I was the one that kind of initiated it. He was a big fan of this artist. And I was like, yeah, let's go to the goth bar. That sounds cool as fuck. And we went to go see the show, and he had a grand time. I had a grand time. And it's just like a singer-songwriter, pirate sort of ethos of an individual, this Voltaire dude. Solo acoustic guitar. But at the end, he just started inviting people up on stage, and I knew how much Scurti was into it. I was like, yo, let's go. And we did. And then Voltaire was like, okay, now we're going to get you to sing the incantation that gives me ownership of your souls. And I was like, shit.
Every time.
And yep, Scurti was right there with me for it. And he was like, yeah, I knew that was a thing. And I was like, why didn't you say something? So that was the kind of the last conversation that we had was just the, like what kids these days are doing at shows. And then a couple of days later, I had gotten home from a loadout here at home. And it's probably 3:30 or so in the morning, and I get home and I'm kind of decompressing, cleaning up a little bit. I got my beer going. 4:00 rolls around, and I start to feel this sort of like weird rush. And I don't know if you remember us ever having a conversation about it on Bodyguard, but it's just this like sort of full body. You get this. Sometimes there's a ring, sometimes there's this buzzing thing that happens in your head, but typically it happens over an extended amount of time, like half an hour or so. This time I'm home, I'm downstairs in the kitchen. I start to get that tingly feeling, and then boom, out of nowhere, this blast goes off in the inside of my head, and it feels like a 22 had went off inside or something. It's the weirdest shit. And it hit so hard that I kind of had to catch myself on the counter, just because it was a like part immediate head rush, just part what the fuck happened. And while that happened, there's just a little like open entryway into the kitchen. This big black shadow rushes by, and it takes up the full like door frame. It looked like it went up kind of close to the ceiling, right? And at this point, the only thing that I can think is, I should probably go lay down.
Yeah, fair assessment.
So I go upstairs, I lay down, I'm feeling this sensation where I'm sinking into the bed, but yet floating out of it, kind of just splitting right down the middle. And it was intense, tasting this copper sort of taste in my mouth. And I remember musing, I'm like, man, I really hope I wake up tomorrow, because I'm fairly certain this is what dying feels like. And I did wake up, because here we are. And I was like, man, that was really weird. I'm guessing something weird's going to happen today. Well, lo and behold, my head carpenter texts me, and he's like, did you hear about Scurti? Do you know what happened to him? And sure enough, I guess it was one of the crew members had found Scurti at his house, and I guess it was a suicide to some degree, and just it was fucked up. We didn't find out for a couple of days like what was really going on, just because how I guess information gets telephone game back and forth. But yeah, it's and then the first song that I heard, I hopped in the car, I had to go somewhere, and there was a phone plugged in, and the first song came out. I forget the name of the band, but the song was "Sick Like Suicide." This is the craziest shit. And there was a good amount of denial, which I guess is to be expected, but there was just this suspicion that he wasn't really gone. Of course, I had no basis for that. At the time, I kind of choked it up to being, like I said, in denial. But it wasn't until a couple of days later that I'd found out that he hadn't technically passed away, but he did suffer, or he was, I guess. Sorry, this might be a little not safe for life, depending on the listeners out there.
It's okay. I mean, like, there are some crazy stuff, but I mean, it happens, and it sounds like he was, I guess, considered brain dead because
Yeah.
of it, right?
Yeah. They didn't get to him in time because he didn't show up. He didn't show up on to work on time, and someone went to check on him. But yeah, a couple days later, it turned out he had actually passed, and at that point, when I'd read that news, I was like, okay, I guess that makes a little more sense, and not that it was a relief naturally, but just this, it's like, man, I finally feel like I can breathe about this again, just because it's, it was kind of shocking. I know he's had a really positive impact on a lot of people, and sometimes he's rubbed people the wrong way. I'm sure I'm no different, but it's I'm gonna miss him, no doubt. I got one of his voicemails still saved that he sent me a couple weeks before this happened. And I'm always, anytime I see Street Fighter, because that was our shit. I cannot recommend, however, bringing a Super Nintendo onto the bus to play Street Fighter in the back lounge, because it turns out that anytime you hit a pothole, it's going to launch that Super Nintendo up into the air and eject your game for you when it comes back down.
Good to note. I will remember that the next time I have to ride on a bus.
Especially when you're turning the tide and you're getting ready to kick their ass. It's like, this is the most crucial moment, and you ruined it.
No.
No. But yeah, it's and he was super into bands like KMFDM. It's really hard for me to say. Just like that sort of industrial goth metal. I shouldn't say goth metal. That's kind of a lame term, just because it's too generic. But I'm blanking on the other bands that he was really into at the time. But yeah, that's the three people that I've known on the road. At some road warrior friends, family. It's yeah.
Yeah, and it's, like, even when you were talking about each one, because each one was from, different shows, they were different positions, and you knew them at different times of your life, but they've all had that strong effect on you in some way.
I will say that Phil and Buff were on the same show.
Yeah, but like also even with those two, like, your relationship with each of them was different.
Oh,
yeah.
And I see what you're saying.
And Phil and Buff were both on your first tour, so it makes sense that they kind of, were key people. But Scurti was much later on, and yet you guys kind of connected in different ways, and so yeah.
Man, Scurti had these this is a great idea, and at some point, if I'm ever back in that position, I definitely want to try it. But he has these leather arm guards that he would use from his days of live action role playing. And I guess maybe it was cosplay to a degree. I feel like I'm kind of speaking out of turn with that, but regardless, like, he had these sort of Renaissance based leather armbands that he would use for running a spotlight, so he wouldn't burn his left arm.
Oh, that
which was
makes sense.
pretty amazing. Yeah, it was really cool. It looks really cool too.
Yeah, I bet. So you mentioned with Scurti that Street Fighter and some of the music is kind of like key things that you remember. Is there anything that with either Phil or Buff that kind of trigger memories and stuff like that?
For Buff, bands like Tool, I remember him. I remember him. I remember him having Tool shirts that he was really into. There's another hardcore band called Pennywise that he was really into. Pennywise is pretty cool. I haven't actually listened to him in a long time. I should fix that. As far as Phil, I can't say that I was as close with Phil, just because I wasn't working with him in that regard. So I'm fuzzy on remembering anything in that capacity, I guess is what I'm saying, as far as Phil's concerned.
Yeah. Well, even then, there's still like the fact that he was there, and just the memory of him still affected you in some way.
Right.
Yeah. So after them passing away, was there anything that kind of changed specifically for you, either within your job or kind of how you were seeing things, It sounds like with Scurti, that was a much more immediate reaction without really realizing that he had shot himself or anything like that.
Yeah, it's and it wasn't anything that graphic. I think it was just self strangulation. I at least that's what I think. I'm as far as things that changed. I mean, it's with Buff and Phil, not really, because I had kind of been I transitioned out of that world, and I wasn't really communicating with everybody to a big degree. And I'd started doing the Broadway tours and the theme park work and stuff like that. As far as Scurti, I think I was just really bummed about it for the most part. There was a couple of loadouts. There was a couple of loadouts. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this one for you, bud. That sort of mentality. Because this happened right before we started Chicago, actually.
Oh, that's right. I remember some talk towards the beginning of that with I think it was between you and maybe Rizzo or something like that.
Yeah, Mark Wise knew him too.
Yeah.
He was our head carp for that show. But no, I don't I can't really think of anything that necessarily changed. Except for maybe whenever I feel that way with the whole head buzzing and everything, I kind of brace for impact.
Yeah, I mean, when that happens, I bet you're a bit more on edge and kind of waiting to see what changed.
Yeah, let's see how weird this is gonna get.
Right. So I know with some of them it's probably been a while, but if they were to come back for a day or so, is there anything that you guys would want to do together or kind of talk about together?
As far as Phil's concerned, I'd like to hear some more old stories of touring in the older days. As far as Buff and Scurti is concerned, I just want to split a case of Miller Lite and pound some mead with him. I just want to hang out, shoot the shit, talk some shit, listen to some music, chill by a pool or something. I can't. I think that would be the one thing I wouldn't want to do is like force it. Try and figure out why, or try and figure out how it could have been different. It's just like, let's enjoy that time that we got together for one last moment, and then we'll be on our way.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a good point, because I know with some people, and of course it depends on, the connection that you have with them, there's always some unanswered questions or some things that were kind of left unsaid that you might feel the need to try and discuss and get over with. But, I don't know, sometimes it might just be better to just be able to sit with someone for a while and just enjoy their company again. Yeah,
and like if in this hypothetical situation and it is 12 hours, or even if it's 2 hours, like I don't really see how it would benefit yourself or maybe the time that you're having with this person to sit there and try and suss out what you could have done better for them to be there for them. I don't know. I don't know if that sounds callous or not. I'm not sure, I guess, how to describe it. It's just what happened is done, and I don't want to dwell. I just want to hang out and enjoy the good times.
Yeah. No, and that, I get that. Like, it's, again, it might change depending on who you're talking about and all that, but no, I don't think it's callous to want to just hang out with someone again, because I mean, that's kind of all we really want to do in general. Whenever you have a friend over, you just want to, spend some time, catch up, see what's new in their life, and kind of go off into the random topics that you normally go off to in general. And I mean, yeah, if there is anything that needs to be said, then maybe say that, but like you said, not to dwell on it. Just kind of, hopefully there's a way to make your peace otherwise. And then that way when, in this hypothetical, if they were to come back, just take that time and just, be with them.
Actually, I take that back. I do know something that I would absolutely try and do with Scurti.
Oh, yeah?
So, the drink where you take half a Guinness and a shot of Bailey's and JMO, right? You drop it in, you gotta chug it.
Yeah.
Which is delicious, right?
I'm going to take your word on that because I've never found it delicious, but sure.
Ooh. So there's a video of Scurti, and I've wanted to try this for so long. It's just most places, oddly enough, won't serve it to you. But he was on video at one of his home bars. He also knew tons of great little local drinking spots in Jacksonville. I'm just going to throw that out there. He's got half a pitcher of Guinness and half a pint glass of the JMO and Bailey's, and he dunks it in there and drinks like 4.5 of these in one go.
Oh,
it's one of the more impressive things that I've seen somebody do. And
okay.
I would want to do that with him, I think. I think that's what I'd be like, yo, we gotta go do this. There's no question about it.
That is my one request. We'll do anything else you want, but we have to go and chug an entire pitcher of Guinness.
Half a pitcher.
Okay, fine. Half a pitcher. But I mean, once that Bailey drops in, it might as well be a full pitcher.
Oh, that is true. Because curdling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on and talking about your road buddies and sharing all these great stories.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to see where you take the show and see how it grows.
Yeah. And I appreciate your blessing in all this.
Hey, you know what? We made it to the end of the show. Mm-hmm. You want that little soundbite?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh no, I turned the volume down like an amateur.
I am the hype.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing it posted.
Yep. Thank you for stopping by and meeting Buff, Phil, and Scurti. If you like hearing all these incredible stories, please consider supporting us through Anchor and like, rate, and subscribe. If you want to reach out and share your own stories, feel free to email us at storiesattheofrenda@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at storiesattheofrenda. Be safe out there, and we'll see you all soon. Te quiero.